Hello and welcome to the first podcast that I have on the channel. And I don't know, I wanted to try and see how it would go. So for today's topic, I thought we would start with something light, something simple, like the meaning of life and the sense behind existence and the universe and all that stuff. So, in my opinion, but we all have our very basic and limited opinions, but my opinion is starting from the point that I always like to put this example. My opinion is that we don't know what's going on most of the times. We can have suspicions, we can have information, bits of information. You never know exactly if the information you're getting is accurate or not regarding God and regarding the what happens after we die and all that stuff. And that's true also for me. So I'm not ashamed to say that I don't have many answers. But on the contrary, I think I am proud a bit of not falling into one into one aspect and following it to the end. Be it it could be atheism, it could be some particular religion. So I try to be open-minded in everything I do, and in if that I like to say that if any of you at some point were I don't know, like abducted by aliens and had a very experience difficult to believe and all that, I would probably be one of the few people that would listen to you and analyze your speech and see which points make sense, which points are logical, even within something that we don't know much about. I always trying to find the logic and the sense and the things that might end up driving me in the right direction. So I'm not saying that I always manage to find a way, but in topics so vast and so mysterious as the meaning of life, I think that my approach has always been quite beneficial to me. And my approach is the following. I find myself opening a room where I enter, and there is a clock connected to a string, connected to a bowling ball that will be going down some slide made of wood, and then it would push some basket that would in turn have an effect on some balls or some pins or something that will activate a candle that will burn another piece of rope after a certain time, and after this rope is burned, something will fall. And I'm looking at this complex mechanism, and I'm telling to myself, okay, I don't know who put these things here. I don't know why they put these things here. But I surely know that this is not normal. This is not something that happens out of chaos. And this is not something that would just be a random streak of coincidences or something like that. So in such a room, when you don't have many answers, a lot of people will try to come in and fill the void with their own opinions or with their own particular points of view. And it's quite scary to lay back and say, hey, I have no idea who created this. I have no idea what the purpose of it is. And I have no idea how it works. I can more or less see the patterns. I can see that the design is pointing in some directions. For example, I can see that I feel good when I help others, or when I am of some benefit for society or for other people. I can, in the end, I can see that if I do good things, the results are positive and I feel good myself, even if it at some point goes against my own personal interest. It goes beyond that, so it gives me a clue that it's not everything about personal gain, and nature hasn't made us, evolution hasn't made us into just animals with brains that got the brain just to be able to get more for themselves, or to be able to benefit even more from going against those who cannot play the intellectual game at a level like we do. I'm not saying that I'm particularly good at it. What I'm saying is that the design doesn't seem to point in the direction that doing bad things will bring happiness. So from that point of view, we can, we can take the pieces that we have available to us and wonder, wait, if what you're telling me is true, then why exactly do I feel well? If it's everything a battle where we are all fending for ourselves, and where we just have to do what's best for us or for our immediate group of people, and that's all. When you reach a point of intellectual, that intellectual being, like human beings, there would be no point in many of the things that we do. So there is no explanation for the reasoning behind wanting to have a family, for example, or wanting to help somebody in need, even if it detracts from our resources. And if you only go with the natural selection and this approach that life is a jungle and the strong one survives and the weak one should perish and blah, 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 or the best adapted, there is a twist to that one, going with strong and weak is no longer as difficult to debate. So they usually go with, no, it's not about being strong or weak, it's about being well adapted for certain periods of society, certain circumstances. And I have to say, I agree to a point that adaptation to the situations that you have to live is an essential talent. But ultimately, if we are going for the big questions, you can see that some of the things we do that make us feel well, they don't directly benefit us in a situation of adaptation. So it's easy to see how some of the positive things that the human being has to offer are sometimes beyond himself or herself. What I'm getting at is that we don't really know who designed the room, who put the bowling ball there, who put the ropes and everything. But I tend to mistrust anyone telling me that all that appeared just without a reason, or those who claim to have all the answers and to have every single. So being in a balanced middle in these type of big questions would seem wise. Having said this, it's true that when you're presented with different theories, you also have to take into account that somebody could be right. Somebody could have bits of truth that you would have to join together to make a cohesive theory of your own, or your cohesive way of looking at the world and the universe. So in my case, when I start reading about Eastern philosophies and stuff like that, there are bits of truth that resonate with me. It might seem empty talk, like anything could resonate with you, but I think that at a deeper level, we can all understand when something resonates because it's what we want to hear at a particular time, or because it has some truth in it. And in my case, it goes like that with Eastern philosophies when they talk about concepts like being a positive influence in the world and doing good and getting being defined by the good that you do in the world, regardless of the consequences, regardless of the the circumstances, we tend to feel pride on other human beings that went beyond their limitations, their social limitations, human beings who opposed the power, human beings that would have been more comfortable going along with the current and agreeing to the injustice being committed or something like that. But when we find an example of somebody who stands and fights against all that, even at the cost of his or her own benefit and advancement and comfort sometimes, it's somehow it fills us with pride. It fills us with, it gives us a good feeling. And that's another clue that I have, that in a way, yes, as a collective, as a society, we might be inclined to give a positive reinforcement to those who make the collective a better place, a more functional place. But at the same time, it also influences the way in which we see ourselves. Having said, understanding from an intellectual point of view that these people would be good for the collective, for a society, that people who help others make us feel good and make us have a positive image of them, based on how good it would be if we were in the situation that, in a situation where we need help and these people or similar people are there to help us. That would be a very, very clear and easy way to explain it, but it wouldn't really explain why we ourselves feel also compelled to emulate that type of stuff. Being helped is positive for us. Helping others is not necessarily positive for us. It doesn't really, at a practical level, at a materialistic level, it doesn't really make sense from a strategic point of view. But we find that there are some points that go together. And I think that we all understand that wisdom goes together with ethics. That somehow it would be very strange to find a wise person that is not a good person. So you can find smart people, you can find cunning people that might be, with their limited intelligence, they might be able to succeed and even to be on top of other people that are objectively more intelligent than them. But somehow we still pay more attention to the second group of people, the people that don't really go for the personal gain, and they go more for they transcend all these limitations, the personal gain limitations. And from that perspective, I think that if we join all that with the rest of the clues that we have, it would be as if the universe is telling us to follow a path that might go against our own interest, but at the same time it doesn't, because it benefits us at a spiritual level or at a deeper level than the materialistic one. So I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense right now. I hope I am, but my point is that the universe gives us clues that we are happy doing some things that don't necessarily translate into practical stuff. And even though it could be argued that society has conditioned us, or that being members of a society, we have developed a genetic trait to be useful to the society, because in the long run, the society functioning well would benefit us. That might very well be true, but going beyond the immediate society, it's also true that there is something pushing us beyond. There is something that helps us, even though we don't have the answers to life on Earth and what happens after we die. The clues that we have is that, the reality of the thing is that it would be probably better to face the final stages of someone's life, knowing that he or she has been a positive influence in the world, and that they have things to show, to prove that they left the world a better place than when they found it by their actions. That would be my so it's we can go to the Book of the Dead in Egypt, when they were like this concept of Ka, and the idea that it doesn't really matter if I forgive you or not, you have to do good by yourself. When somebody does something to you, it's like, yes, I can forgive you, and that probably will be good for me, and you will probably feel relief. But that's not going to change the bad action that you did, and it needs to be corrected. So the kind of like the rule of Matt. I think it was Matt, the justice, like justice as something impersonal and something that doesn't really have to do with you could be forgiven by the victim, but still you need to fix your crime. It doesn't really it shouldn't matter if you have a victim or if you did something to someone who would forgive you or not. So from that ancient Egyptian perspective, it would be beneficial to cross to the other side and have this balance where they put the good and the bad, and the good is better, it weighs more. It could also be argued that some of these concepts were also entering other religions, including Abrahamic. Brahmanic, I think, religions like Christianity, for example, and that it influences the way in which these religions evolved. Certainly, there was a lot of contact between Semitic people, Egyptians. It would be very easy to share different gods. We know that the Romans and the Greeks were taking gods, particularly the Romans, from other areas. So it's true that some of the concepts might be not general because they originated in different parts at different times, and then we see different manifestations of the same concept. It could very well be that something seemed plausible and logical to a collective of people, and that it kind of became more popular. That, of course, wouldn't make it true, because there could be false things that are followed by others, and so it wouldn't necessarily make it true, the fact that people believe in it. But the truth of the point of the matter is that if we take any system of beliefs, being a good person would probably be better than being a bad person. And that's when we have some of the problems, because a lot of people will try to define what is being a good person and what is being a bad person. And for that, I think that we should make a distinction between ethics and morality. So morals. In my personal case, I usually define ethics as not only me. I hope that we can go to the dictionary and agree on the definition. But in my point of view, ethics should be something objective and beyond any type of doubt, and morals would be something circumstantial, something that has to do with the society, with a particular time. It might coincide with ethics at some moments, but ethics should be something more universal, something that is good regardless of who is doing it, at what point they are doing it, and the reasons why they are doing it. So it would be something, some crazy example. I don't know. It would be like punching a kitty in the face without any, small kitten, without any reason. It would be bad now, 3,000 years ago, and it will probably be bad in any civilization, under any circumstance. So it would be bad at any point in history, regardless of of who is doing it, when they are doing it, or if the people around them take it seriously, or they have some particular positive opinion about, or they don't care. It could very well be that in some mountain society in 1643, nobody cares if you punch a kitty in the face because, they have other problems, or they don't see it as a serious offense or something like that. But that would be beyond the point. The action would still objectively be bad because it doesn't conform with self-preservation. It doesn't conform. And even if it conformed with self-preservation, even if somebody said, even if somebody benefited us at a personal level, in exchange for committing bad, unethical action, even so, we could all more or less agree with our ethical compass which things are good and which things are bad. Of course, there are cases where it's going to be very difficult. At the end, we are humans, we have our limitations. But in general, I would say that in many cases, we all recognize what is good and what is bad based on ethics. Even if morality sometimes gets in the way, ethics usually tells us which is the good way. And that's something very interesting, because if you realize that humans have this wisdom for what is good and what is bad, you also understand that this is not specifically connected with the social aspect of humanity, that we haven't evolved this trait just because it's good to be in a society and being a good person will give you benefits in the long run and blah blah blah. So it goes beyond that. It's even if you are living away from society and on your own without anything to gain from it, you can still perceive what is good, what is bad. And I think that's the point that joins with the first example of the room, where different things are connected to different things, and something is going on here. We don't really know what it is. But if you consider the tools that we have been given and the general setting, you can more or less perceive the logic behind it. So a being like a human being that is given the ability to tell right from wrong and to analyze if what he or she is doing is right or wrong, and it doesn't personally depend on intellect. You could very well see children applying perfectly ethics without still having developed their intellectual capabilities beyond the levels that an adult might have. When you take all these things into consideration and you take away the social aspect and similar characteristics, you start realizing that there are certain lines that join everything together. And one of them would be that whatever happens in the end, being a good person and having been ethical in your decisions, in your opinions, at the times when nobody was watching, the things that you were saying, the things that you were doing, beyond personal reproach or beyond that in the end, when you are faced with a decision that only you will know if it's good or bad, if you chose good in those situations over evil, it in the end, it would have a positive effect one way or another, whatever happens. So all that together, I think, would really paint a picture in which we don't have many answers, but if there is a light at the end of the tunnel, if there is some energy, some power, if there is something, if we have to reincarnate until reaching, for example, in Buddhism, there is this idea that there are other planets better than these, and the reincarnation process makes your soul better and more developed and all that. And in turn, it would make sense that a being that requires experiences it would, like, experiencing reality, it would be appropriate to do it in smaller parts. So I don't really know if that makes a lot of sense to you, but imagine, for example, if you had the ability to feel what a dolphin feels when they are swimming, what a bird feels when they are flying, what an ant feels as part of a massive colony. All those experiences would be unable to attain without dividing your consciousness into, or without acquiring those experiences in like second hand by some means. So in a way, I think that the experience of the universe and life itself has a lot to do with improving ourselves through experiences, living different things, contacting different people, and being in different situations. And in the end, that would have a positive effect not only on ourselves, but also in the general, like, if we all do better, the existence itself does better. So I hope I haven't bored you too much with my first podcast, but I just felt like it's one of those topics that I cannot really discuss very often with people. So I don't know, I felt that it would be good to share it with all of you, and I hope that you found it a bit interesting. And if you have any comment or whatever, you can leave it in the comments. I don't expect to have more than 7, 8, 9 views, but in any case, all of you are welcome, and thank you for listening.